Chapter 55-74. I hope they can all come back safely. Mu Lingbing couldn't help praying. Ever since Hong Zhuang left, she had been praying that the children would be safe. However, from what Diu Jue said, Hong Zhuang and Beichen should be living in the Di family now. With the Di family's strength, they shouldn't have any problems. Why don't we go look for them? Nangong Wu couldn't help but suggest. When Yu Linfeng said he wanted to go first, she had objected. However, in the end, she couldn't win against Yu Linfeng and stayed. As Yu Linfeng left longer and longer, she became more and more worried. She couldn't help but want to go to Penglai Island to look for him. Looking at Nangong Wu's anxious expression, Mu Lingbing grabbed her hand and said, "Wu, did you forget what they told us before they left? Especially Linfeng. He especially told me to keep an eye on you and not let you go to Penglai Island. Think about it, the two of them are stronger than us. If they can't handle it, how can we handle it? If they can handle it, then we don't need to trouble them. So no matter how worried we are, we have to wait." Mu Lingbing's expression was resolute. Although her heart had already flown to Penglai Island, her reason told her that she couldn't be impulsive. If they wanted to go, they would have gone together. She could understand what Yun Xiao and Mu Lingbing were thinking. So no matter how helpless they were, they couldn't be willful. Hearing Mu Lingbing's words, Nangong Wu sighed. It seems like there's really no other way. Don't think about it. I believe they'll come back safely. Mu Lingbing smiled faintly. Have some snacks. No, I'm not in the mood. Nangong Wu shook her head. I'd better go back and cultivate. I hope my cultivation can improve quickly so that I can go with them. In the past, she didn't pay much attention to cultivation. However, this was what she regretted the most. If he was strong enough, there would be no need for him to wait here. Seeing this, Mu Lingbing nodded slightly. Both she and Mu Lingbing had been working especially hard during this period of time. At least when they were cultivating, they didn't spend all their time worrying and longing for each other. After a few days of flying, Di Beichen's group was getting closer and closer to their destination. Sensing the gradually familiar aura, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Unknowingly, he had already left this place for so long. It really felt like a lifetime had passed. Fortunately, everyone was back. Let's go to my house first. Bailey Hongzhuang looked in the direction which was the closest to the Lan family. Di Beichen and the others naturally had no objections. They subconsciously looked at Xiren and Shangguan Yingying. We don't have a problem either. When Xiren smiled faintly. Anyway, there's a teleportation array between the Lan family and Tiangang sect. It's very convenient for us to come and go. As for the Heavenly Dipper sect to the Cloud Sword sect, they had traveled back and forth so many times and were even more familiar with it. That's good. We'll be arriving at the family soon. Di Beichen smiled. Although the upper realm was his home, it had to be said that this was the place where he had lived for the longest time. Even if he felt the air of his hometown, there was a unique sense of familiarity. Chapter 55-75. The flying carriage stopped in front of the Lan family's illusory array, and the six of them got off. Di Beichen put away the flying carriage. Lan Yunxiao took a few steps forward and opened the illusory array with great familiarity. The Lan family's appearance appeared before everyone's eyes. Come, let's go in quickly. Lan Yunxiao's voice was filled with lightness and joy. His distinguished and elegant appearance, coupled with his brilliant smile, truly made him a first-rate handsome man. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other before following closely behind Lan Yunxiao. Look, is that the patriarch? Suddenly, a sharp-eyed Lan family disciple noticed the approaching figures and couldn't help but cry out in pleasant surprise. Along with this disciple's voice, the other disciples all turned their gazes, and when they clearly saw who it was, joy appeared on everyone's faces. It's not just the patriarch, there's also the young miss and young master. Heavens, this is truly great news. Quickly go inform the madam. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others slowly approached. Seeing the familiar faces before them, everyone completely relaxed. A kind of joy spread from the bottom of their hearts. This kind of feeling was something that couldn't be given by anything else. We're finally back. This feeling is truly great. Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Even if this was only the Lan family and not the Cloud Sword sect that she was familiar with, she already had this kind of feeling. When she returned to the Cloud Sword sect, presumably this kind of feeling would be even more obvious. That's right, this is the feeling of home. The corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips rose slightly, and the smile that came from the bottom of her heart was extremely brilliant. Nangong Wu was about to return and cultivate properly when she saw a young disciple energetically running over. As he ran, he shouted, "Madam, the patriarch is back!" Hearing this voice, Nangong Wu was slightly stunned, and then a trace of astonishment appeared in her eyes. She only wondered if she was hallucinating. After hearing this, Mu Lingbing's reaction wasn't much better than Nangong Wu's. She quickly walked out of the room and saw the figure running over. She hastily asked, "What did you say?" "Madam, the family head is back," the young cultivator said happily. Receiving another confirmation, Mu Lingbing couldn't contain her excitement. "You're back. He's finally back." However, Nangong Wu tightly tugged on his clothes and asked, "Only the Lan family head came back?" "No." The man shook his head. "Miss, young master, and palace lord, you have all returned." Hearing this, Nangong Wu and Mu Lingbing exchanged glances. Their faces were filled with joy and surprise. Nangong Wu couldn't help but jump up and scream, "They're back! They're all back!" "Yeah, let's go and take a look." Mu Lingbing couldn't care less about her image. She grabbed Nangong Wu and ran out. She had to see for herself that this wasn't an illusion. Patriarch. Young Mississippi, son-in-law. Palace Lord Yu. Along the way, the Lan family disciples all bowed, and everyone's faces were filled with smiles. Young Miss and son-in-law haven't returned since they left. I didn't expect that they would return with the patriarch today. How delightful. Of course, young Miss has always been my idol. I'm so happy to see her again. Chapter 55-76. Why haven't I seen Mother and Master's wife yet? Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked forward. Many elders had rushed over after hearing the news. Someone had already gone to inform them, but she didn't understand why they hadn't seen them yet. Whether it was Mu Lingbing or Nangong Wu, Bailey Hongzhuang missed them dearly. They were the most important women in her life. It wasn't just Bailey Hongzhuang. Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng were also looking in the direction of Mu Lingbing's residence. Noticing this, Shangguan Yingying and the rest exchanged looks. They had long heard that both House Master Lan and Palace Master Yu doted on their wives. Now it seemed that the rumors were true. Just as everyone was pondering, two beautiful figures quietly appeared in everyone's line of sight. When Mu Lingbing came out, she immediately noticed the familiar figures in front of her. Her eyes couldn't help but moisten. After waiting for so long, the people she cared about the most had finally returned. Hongzhuang. Mu Lingbing glanced at Lan Yunxiao before rushing to Bailey Hongzhuang. "Mother, I'm back." Bailey Hongzhuang was full of smiles as tears flickered in her eyes. Even though they had only reunited for a short time, she was well aware of her mother's love for her. Mother and daughter embraced each other. Feeling the warmth and familiar scent in her embrace, Mu Lingbing's heart was filled with satisfaction and joy. "Hongzhuang, you're finally back." After a while, Mu Lingbing released Bailey Hongzhuang and carefully examined her. "Has it been hard on you these past few years? I see that you've lost weight." "No." Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head with a smile. "Don't talk about me. You're the one who's really lost weight." She could clearly feel that her mother had lost weight. It must have been because she was worried about them. "Who told you not to come back earlier to see me? I've been thinking about you every day, so I lost weight." Mu Lingbing's tears turned into a smile. "Your daughter is unfilial," Bailey Hongzhuang said in a low voice with an apologetic look in her eyes. A mother would be worried about a son traveling thousands of miles. In fact, she had always known that her parents and relatives must be worried about her, but there were too many things that she couldn't free herself from in a short period of time. This guilt had always existed in her heart. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's serious expression, Mu Lingbing held her hand and shook her head. Silly girl, I was just saying. I know you're filial and there must be a reason why you didn't come back. At the same time, Nangong Wu looked at Yu Linfeng with tears in her eyes. When she was about 10 meters away, Nangong Wu stopped. Looking at the figure in front of her, who was much thinner than before, her heart was extremely complicated. The nervousness, worry and anxiety of the past few days all rushed to her heart in an instant. All these years, no matter where she went, she was always with Yu Linfeng. They had never been separated for such a long time. Perhaps these days weren't long for others, but for her, it was like 3 autumns in a day. It was too hard to bear. Yu Linfeng looked at the familiar figure and his handsome face broke into a warm smile. In the next moment, he opened his arms and looked tenderly at Nangong Wu. Nangong Wu smiled when she saw this, but as she smiled, she couldn't stop her tears from falling. She quickly walked forward and ran into Yu Linfeng's arms. Chapter 55-77. Yu Linfeng's heart ached as he looked at the petite woman sobbing uncontrollably in his arms. Guilt and self-blame welled up in his heart. In truth, he was well aware of Nangong Wu's dependence on him. He could guess that when he wasn't around, Nangong Wu would be at a loss for what to do and worry about him all day. However, he had no other choice back then. If it weren't for his good luck and coincidentally meeting Hong Zhuang and the others, he would have been dead by now. So even now, he still believed that his decision was the right one. At least, this was much better than being separated forever. Wu-er, it's all my fault. Don't cry. Yu Linfeng's voice was extremely gentle as he caressed Nangong Wu's hair. His handsome face was filled with adoration and heartache. Look, Hong Zhuang and the others are back too. Don't make a fool of yourself. However, Nangong Wu, who was in a state of sadness and joy, couldn't stop crying. She buried her head in Yu Linfeng's chest, unwilling to lift her head. Yu Linfeng didn't force her and only gently patted Nangong Wu's back. Di Beichen and the others only smiled faintly at this scene. They didn't think that Nangong Wu was making a fool of herself. On the contrary, this scene made them feel exceptionally warm. Mu Lingbing pulled Bailey Hongzhuang with a face full of smiles. Then she looked at Lan Yunxiao and said in a light voice, "How did you two coincidentally come back together? Isn't that so?" Lan Yunxiao raised his brows. "Father and daughter are connected by heart, so we coincidentally ran into each other." "Really?" Mu Lingbing was surprised. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. "Isn't that so? Moreover, my father and master are so handsome and elegant. They're very conspicuous." She knew very well that her father didn't want her mother to know what had happened before. He didn't want her mother to worry. She understood her father's deep meaning and naturally wouldn't say it out loud. Mu Lingbing smiled faintly at the way the father and daughter were singing the same tune. She didn't suspect anything. In fact, no matter if it was Bailey Hongzhuang or Lan Yunxiao, they were both characters that were hard to ignore. "Everyone, don't just stand here. Let's go in and take a seat." After Mu Lingbing recovered from her excitement, she quickly called out to everyone. "We've been on the road for so many days. You must be exhausted. I'll get someone to prepare some food." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "It's been a long time since I've tasted my family's cooking. You've been gone for so long. Now that you're back, you can't leave so soon." "Of course," Bailey Hongzhuang replied with a smile, but a complicated look flashed through her eyes. She also didn't want to be so far away from her mother. She only hoped that she could go to the upper realm with everyone. She just didn't know if her father would change his mind. At this moment, Xiren suddenly spoke up. "Di Beichen, Ying and I won't stay here any longer." Mu Lingbing hurriedly said, "It wasn't easy for us to come here. No matter what, we have to eat here. Many thanks, Auntie. Ziren smiled faintly. But we've been gone for a long time. Now that we've finally returned, we want to hurry back and take a look. If we have the chance, we'll definitely come back again. Bachin nodded. Then you two can go back first. It'll be quick to go back after passing through 2 transportation arrays. Mu Lingbing understood Ziren and Lan Yunxiao's feelings. Then Auntie won't keep you here today. Come again next time. Chapter 55-78. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bachin escorted Ziren and Wenxinya to the teleportation array. Ziren, you guys should return to the Cloud Sword sect first. When the matter is almost settled, we'll meet up at the Tiangang sect, Bachin said after some thought. The Tiangang sect and the Cloud Sword sect had an excellent relationship. In addition, they practically grew up together, so it was very convenient for the 2 sects to communicate with each other. Ziren nodded slightly. No problem. I'll send someone to pay attention to whether or not you've arrived at the Tiangang sect. By the way, how long do you plan to stay here this time? Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but ask. Although they all hoped to stay at home for a while longer, the threat of the upper realm was always there. This time, they had actually spent a lot of time rushing back. Although the Xiao family and the Jun family were damaged, no one knew what would happen in the future. Obviously, they couldn't stay here for too long. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head, a helpless expression on her face. I haven't thought about it yet. I only hope to bring them to the upper realm. However, you've seen my father's attitude. I don't know how long it will take to convince him. Let's go back and try to talk about this idea. Hopefully, my father will agree, Ziren sighed. Originally, he was full of confidence about this. However, he wasn't completely sure now. Let's take it one step at a time. Everyone, go back and understand the situation first. It won't be too late for us to contact each other and think of countermeasures after we figure it out, Bachin said. Okay, then let's talk about it this way. In any case, we've just returned. There's no need to be too anxious. After sending off Shangguan Yingying and Ziren, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bachin continued to walk back to the family. Bai Liyan Che and Ling Er also came out of the Chaos Ring. Originally, they had planned to come out when they were at Penglai Island. However, many things happened later, so they didn't come out for the time being. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others returned to the house, they found that Nangong Wu's emotions had clearly calmed down. Although her eyes were still red and swollen, she was clearly in a good mood. At this moment, the 4 were happily chatting in the house. Both Mu Lingbing and Nangong Wu were very interested in Penglai Island's matters. Fortunately, the in-law gave us a lot of spirit stones. Otherwise, we would have been paupers when we arrived at Penglai Island. But after arriving at Penglai Island, they finally understood how precious these stones were. Were truly precious. But after they arrived at Penglai Island, they finally understood how. The Hongzhuang Island's island was low-grade spirit stones were already exceptionally precious on Penglai Island. However, Diujue had given them high-grade spirit stones. According to their understanding, almost no one on Penglai Island possessed high-grade spirit stones. I didn't expect spirit stones to be equivalent to gold coins. Without them, it's really hard to move an inch. Mu Lingbing and Nangong Wu listened with great interest. They had never encountered such situations before and only found it exceptionally interesting. Only when they noticed Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' appearance did the 4 turn their heads. However, when they saw Bai Liyan Che and Ling Er, they were all stunned. A trace of amazement flashed through their eyes. Such a handsome man and beautiful woman were truly eye-catching. Chapter 55-79. What a charming young lady and young man. Nangong Wu's eyes were filled with admiration. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bachin were already first-rate good-looking. She always felt that no one could compare to them. However, the man and woman in front of her were filled with a completely different exotic charm. Not only were they good-looking, but they were also very special. The more she looked at them, the more she felt a certain charm. It didn't matter that the two of them had countless suitors. No matter where they were, they would be noticed at first glance. Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng looked at each other. On their way back, they hadn't seen these two youths. Why did Hong Zhuang and Yan Jinxing bring these two back with them? Could it be that these two were their friends from before? However, they had just returned. How could they meet so coincidentally? Seeing the four elders' curious expressions, Bailey Hongzhuang also felt a burst of interest. She smiled and said, "Let me introduce you. This is Ling Er, and this is my younger brother, Bai Li Yanche." Hearing Bai Li Yanche's name, Mu Jins also became interested. Bai Li Yanche? He's also surnamed Bailey? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and smiled. "It's just that coincidental. Since you're Hongzhuang's friends, then your guests. Please sit." Mu Jins greeted them. "Why are you here so coincidentally today?" Di Beichen and the other two looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's interesting appearance and couldn't help but want to laugh. Lan Yunxiao naturally noticed the change in their expressions. He frowned and his deep eyes were filled with thoughts. He suddenly asked, "Hongzhuang, are you hiding something from us?" "Ha!" Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh. "You really don't know Ling Er, but Yanche, you're very familiar with him." Hearing this, the four elders were all stunned. Their gazes all landed on Bailey Yanche. They clearly didn't remember this figure. Moreover, Bailey Yanche's appearance was so outstanding. If they had seen him before, it was impossible for them not to have an impression of him. "We're very familiar with him?" Nangong Wu was puzzled. When had she ever seen such a handsome man? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "That's right, very familiar." She still remembered that when Nangong Wu first saw Bai Shi, she only felt that he was especially handsome. She always liked to pet his head and would never forget about him when there was good food. Bai Li Yanche also looked at Nangong Wu with a smile. He also remembered the time when he interacted with Nangong Wu. Now that he was back, Nangong Wu couldn't recognize him. How is this possible? Nangong Wu was incredulous. Could it be that I lost my memory? Mu Lingbing's expression was similar to Nangong Wu's. How could she not remember such a man who left such a deep impression on her? Lan Yunxiao looked at Bai Li Yanche in front of him. After pondering for a while, an impossible thought appeared in his mind. However, he quickly erased it. It was almost impossible. "Hongzhuang, don't keep us in suspense. Just tell us directly." Nangong Wu really couldn't think of anything. This curiosity was driving her crazy. "Ha ha!" Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled and turned to look at Bailey Yanche. "Yanche, it's better if you say it yourself." Chapter 5580. Facing everyone's curious gazes, Bai Li Yanche smiled faintly and said, "I'm Bai Shi. I'm Bai Shi." Following these words, Nangong Wu and the others were clearly stunned for a moment. Immediately after, the four of them widened their eyes. Their shocked expressions were completely different from their usual calm and collected demeanor. Nangong Wu quickly walked forward and carefully sized up Bai Li Yanche. Previously, because she didn't know Bai Li Yanche's identity, her attitude was still rather distant. Now that she knew everything, her attitude was completely different. "You're really Bai Shi? That's impossible, right?" Nangong Wu looked at the perfect side profile in front of her. "Aside from being good-looking, there's no similarity between the two of you at all. Could it be that the two of you are colluding to tease us?" Bai Shi actually transformed into a human? This was what shocked Mu Lingbing the most. Many people knew that a contracted beast could transform into a human. When a demonic beast's strength reached a certain level, it could transform into a human. But until now they had never seen such a thing, so they had never thought in this direction. A contracted beast transforming into a human, how shocking was that? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. "Isn't that so? Bai Shi's cultivation talent is very high. A few days ago, he successfully broke through to human form." Lan Yunxiao sighed inwardly. There was truly an insurmountable gap between the lower realm and the upper realm. This kind of thing was almost impossible in the lower realm. If Hong Zhuang and the others hadn't gone to the upper realm, Bai Shi probably wouldn't have been able to reach this step. That was indeed a more suitable place for cultivators. Previously, this possibility had appeared in his mind, but he didn't say it out loud in the end because the probability was too low. Bai Lianche saw that everyone was still in shock and didn't seem to believe his words. He immediately transformed into Bai Shi in front of everyone. Looking at the familiar yet even more majestic white lion in front of them, Nangong Wu and the others finally believed it. It really is a white lion. Nangong Wu exclaimed. Oh my God, this is unbelievable! Previously, I felt that Yen Che looked a little different from the rest of us. He was especially good-looking and gave off a slightly different vibe. Now I finally understand where the problem lies. Mu Lingbing was enlightened. Even if demonic beasts could transform, there were still some differences. Hearing Ling Er's words, Yu Linfeng couldn't help but look at Ling Er. Ling Er had an indescribable quality that was very similar to Bai Shi. Hong Zhuang, could it be that Miss Ling Er? Bailey Hong Zhuang nodded. That's right. Ling Er is also my contracted beast, but I contracted her when I was training, so you've never seen her before. After receiving this affirmative answer, the four of them sighed. It seemed that Bailey Hong Zhuang had encountered many fortuitous encounters without them knowing. Everyone was already used to the fact that Bailey Hong Zhuang could contract multiple demonic beasts. Nangong Wu looked curiously at Ling Er. Ling Er is so beautiful. Could her true form be a fox? Everyone knew that the Fox clan produced the most beauties. Ling Er shook her head. I'm not from the Fox clan. I'm from the Dragon clan. Chapter 5581. It wasn't just Nangong Wu. Mu Lingbing and the others were also shocked when they found out that Ling Er was from the dragon race. Among the many demonic beast races, the dragon race was undoubtedly one of the most outstanding. There were many stories about the dragon race, but the dragon race had always been mysterious and powerful. Most people's thoughts about the dragon race existed only in guesses and rumors. But now, a real dragon had appeared in front of them. Moreover, it was Hong Zhuang's contracted beast. This was truly shocking. I've also never seen a real dragon before, but it seems that dragons are all beauties, Mu Lingbing said with a smile. Ling Er was originally a bit uncomfortable under everyone's scrutiny, but when she felt everyone's kind and joyful gazes, her thoughts changed slightly and she calmed down. Hong Zhuang's relatives were undoubtedly very close. Hong Zhuang, you're really amazing now. Yu Linfeng gave her a thumbs up. You've really broadened our horizons. In the past, we've never seen a real beast king until we saw Bai Shi. Ling Er is the same. Lan Yunxiao smiled, his voice filled with pride. Bailey Hong Zhuang was truly his pride. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, who would have believed it? I'm just lucky. Bailey Hong Zhuang smiled faintly. Although she had worked hard all this time, she had also had a certain amount of luck. If she hadn't been lucky enough to obtain the Chaos Ring, she wouldn't have received the Holy Maiden's inheritance. Perhaps she would have already died in the training ground. Ling Er, can you transform into your true form? Nangong Wu looked at Ling Er with some embarrassment. She knew her request was a bit unreasonable, but a real dragon really made her curious. Wu Yu Linfeng's voice was somewhat reprimanding. Although Ling Er was Hong Zhuang's contracted beast, since she had transformed into a human, she couldn't be treated as a demonic beast. This kind of request was truly inappropriate. Nangong Wu was undoubtedly very obedient to Yu Linfeng's words. She immediately said, I was just speaking casually. Don't take it to heart. Seeing this, Ling Er also smiled and said, No problem, this is not a big deal. She was well aware of the human race's curiosity towards the dragon race. In fact, the dragon race had always been a powerful existence. It was just that there weren't many of them. The heavens were fair. If they gave you great strength, they would also give you something else. So the dragon race couldn't compare to other demonic beast races. It was precisely because of this that many people had never seen a real dragon, so it was normal for them to have such curiosity. Even if she had only interacted with them for a short time, she could feel that the people in front of her were very kind. Seeing Ling agree, Bailey Hongzhuang was also a little surprised. According to her understanding of Ling she had always had an indifferent temperament. Basically, she wasn't very willing to do such a thing. In this regard, she had never thought of forcing Ling. If she wasn't willing, then forget it. However, Ling agreement still made her very surprised. In the next moment, Ling directly walked into the courtyard and transformed into a dragon in the blink of an eye. Chapter 5582. So this is the dragon race. The records in the books weren't this good. Nangong Wu was shocked as she looked at the lines that resembled art. The white dragon's body glowed with rainbow colors under the sunlight, looking as magnificent and colorful as colored glass. Even though Ling had restrained her aura, she could still feel the dragon's might. Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng's reactions weren't as exaggerated as the two girls, but they were still shocked and sighed in their hearts. Although they'd had some guesses about the dragon race from the records and rumors in the books, they only understood the gap between their guesses and reality when they saw it with their own eyes. Isn't that so? Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Ling is an especially good-looking existence among the dragon race. Mu Lingbing agreed. No wonder Ling is so beautiful even after transforming into a human. She's an especially good-looking dragon herself. The usually quiet Ling blushed when she heard the crowd's praises. She transformed back into her human form and stood next to Bailey Hongzhuang. Ling skin is thin. She'll feel embarrassed with so many of you crowding around her and discussing her, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. Hearing this, Nangong Wu withdrew her curious gaze. That's right. Ling is a young lady. It's not good for us to crowd around her like this. Mu Lingbing noticed Ling awkward expression and immediately understood. You've all rushed here and are probably tired. Why don't you go back inside and rest first? Wait until the banquet to eat something. How about it? Mu Lingbing asked with concern. All right. No one had any objections. Although they'd been on the flying carriage for the past few days, they were still a little tired from the continuous journey. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen didn't mind, but Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng were still injured and needed to rest. After returning to her room, Bailey Hongzhuang felt a surge of warmth in her heart as she looked at her spotless house. It seemed that even though he had been away for so long, his parents still sent people to clean his house, waiting for him to come back. I haven't been back for a long time. Everything feels so warm. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang immersed in happiness, Di Beichen's heart also felt warm. Since you're back, stay here for a while. Can I? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. There were still many things in the upper realm that they could not let go of. Of course. Di Beichen nodded. The Xiao family and the Jun family suffered heavy losses this time. They won't be able to recover in a short period of time. Besides, even if they want to cause trouble, the family isn't afraid of them. I still hope that I can convince my parents to leave with us. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed faintly. She missed the feeling of home. Don't worry, we definitely will. Di Beichen pulled Bailey Hongzhuang to sit on his lap and wrapped his arms around her soft waist. We just came back today, so it's not a good time to talk about this. In 2 days, I'll go and have a good talk with father-in-law. How about it? Bailey Hongzhuang placed her hands on Di Beichen's and nodded. I believe in you. Chapter 5583. The Lan family banquet was bustling with activity. When the cooks found out that the master, eldest miss, and young master had all returned, they all worked hard to prepare their signature dishes. The entire family was in a joyous mood, and discussions surrounded Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. However, with the appearance of Bailey Yenche and Ling there was no doubt that two more people had joined the discussion. Just as Nangong Wu and the others had guessed, Bailey Yenche and Ling attracted everyone's attention the moment they appeared. Big Sister Mu, you're so lucky to have such a beautiful and outstanding daughter, and such a handsome and powerful son-in-law. Nangong Wu smiled. Even your contracted beast is so good-looking. Ever since they found out about Bailey Yenche and Ling identities, they had a new understanding. One is marked by the company one keeps, and one is marked by the company one keep. A good-looking person's contracted beast is also good-looking. Hearing this, Mu Lingbing chuckled and instinctively glanced at Yu Linfeng. If you're envious, then hurry up and have one. Nangong Wu clearly didn't expect that she would be caught off guard. She quickly changed the topic. I see that many young men and women in your family have taken a liking to Yenche and Ling. That's to be expected. Mu Lingbing had already guessed this possibility. However, I think that Yenche and Ling are very compatible. Nangong Wu paused, then looked at Ling and Bailey Yenche, who were bickering. She suddenly understood. Big Sister Mu, you're so smart. If you hadn't mentioned it, I wouldn't have thought of this possibility. Haha, it's hard to say what's going on between the younger generation. Mu Lingbing smiled faintly, then turned to Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. Today, the kitchen staff has prepared everything that we can think of. Try it and see if you like it. Looking at the various delicacies in front of her, Bailey Hongzhuang took 2 bites and praised, the taste is naturally excellent. Lingbing, did you tell father-in-law about Hongzhuang's return? Lan Yunxiao put down his chopsticks and asked. The 2 elders were undoubtedly more eager than them for Hongzhuang and Beichen's return. Don't worry, I've already sent someone to inform him. Mu Lingbing nodded. However, father is currently in closed-door cultivation. He should be here tomorrow. Only then did Lan Yunxiao relax. That's good. The elders of the Lan clan toasted them one by one, celebrating everyone's return. Young miss, will you still be leaving this time? The great elder asked with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. We're only staying here for a while. We'll still be going out to train in a few days. There was no doubt that it wasn't appropriate to tell everyone about the upper realm, so Bailey Hongzhuang only said that they were going out to train and didn't talk too much about it. Chapter 5584. In fact, the second elder wasn't the only one who felt this way. They felt the same way as well. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other and said, We've already cultivated to the purple realm. After hearing this answer, the hearts of all the elders trembled. In fact, everyone had always thought that cultivation was endless. However, they didn't understand what was above the purple realm. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had already cultivated to such a realm at such a young age. It was really amazing. Their eldest young miss was truly a genius. Young miss, what's the realm above the purple realm? Can you tell us? The second elder, Lan Borong, blushed and said, To be honest, I've lived to this age and still don't know what's above the purple realm. I can only find out from young Mississippi. Second elder, it's not just you. We don't know either. When the Lan family's old master, Lan Hongtai, saw this scene, he felt a burst of pride in his heart. His granddaughter and grandson-in-law were really capable. Facing the curious gazes of the elders, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and said, Since all the elders are so curious about this, I'll explain it properly. After the purple realm is the starlight realm, and the nebula realm. Each realm also has 9 levels. I didn't expect there to be 3 more realms after the purple realm. I wonder what realm young miss is in now? I'm in the nebula realm now. When these words came out, everyone was dumbfounded. When the young miss left, she was only in the purple realm. In just a few years, she had already reached the nebula realm? 3 realms in a row. If it was an ordinary person, who knew how many years it would take to cultivate. However, the young miss actually did it so easily. This was too shocking. No wonder I felt that the young Miss Aura was so terrifying. Turns out that the gap is so big. It wasn't just the elders and disciples. Even Lan Hongtai and the others couldn't help but be shocked when they learned of Bailey Hongzhuang's true cultivation. This kind of cultivation speed was really shocking. So the upper realms are actually so terrifying. Nangong Wu lowered her voice and sighed. She had always known that Hong Zhuang was a cultivation genius, but she also understood that if Hong Zhuang had stayed here all the time, it would have been impossible for her cultivation to reach such a level in just a few years. The upper realm was indeed a cultivation paradise. Yu Linfeng nodded slightly. He was also shocked by this point. After just one trip to Penglai Island, he felt that Penglai Island's cultivation speed was much faster than the outside world. Needless to say, the upper realm was much stronger than Penglai Island. If he had the chance, he really hoped to go to the upper realm. That was a more suitable place for cultivators. Young miss, you're really amazing. With this kind of cultivation, there's no need to fear anyone. I don't know where the young miss went to train. Such a speed of improvement is really frightening. If I had the chance, then it would really be. Even if you go, you can't compare to the first Mississippi. Although all the disciples understood this point, their blood was still ignited. If they could also have such powerful strength, then they could really do whatever they wanted in the future. For a time, many people were looking forward to the opportunity to train together with the young miss. Chapter 5585. That night, many of the Lan family's cultivators couldn't sleep. Bailey Hongzhuang had described a brand new world to them, making them understand that this world wasn't as simple as they thought. There was an even vaster world with even higher realms. And now, the eldest miss they had always admired was walking at the forefront. News of Lan Yunxiao and Bailey Hongzhuang's return immediately spread throughout the Shengxian continent. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had always been the focus of attention, so when they mysteriously disappeared, many people were very surprised. Regarding this, Tiangang's sect only said that they had gone out to gain experience. However, no one doubted it. As long as one was a cultivator, they would always go out to gain experience, not to mention a sect master who needed to raise his cultivation. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had returned, everyone was even more curious. They didn't know what cultivation they had reached after going out to gain experience for so long. After all, Tiangang's sect, Lan family, Limitless Palace, and other powers added together was an unshakable colossus. Everyone couldn't help but be concerned. Early the next morning, Si Tian and Mu Jints arrived at the Lan family. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest immediately rushed over after hearing the news. Di Beichen was even more excited. Si Tian had raised him and was undoubtedly the closest person to him. I heard that Hong Zhuang and Beichen are back, so I immediately rushed over. Is this true? Si Tian no longer had his usual calmness. His face was filled with surprise and excitement. This old fellow rushed over after hearing the news, not caring how early it is. Mu Jin smiled. Hong Zhuang is really back? Mu Lingbing looked at their anxious expressions and smiled. Don't worry, they're really back. I've already sent people to inform Hong Zhuang and Beichen. They should be back soon. You guys can sit for a while. Beichen's constitution has been completely resolved, right? Situ Yen asked with concern. Lan Yunxiao nodded. It's already been completely resolved. Who knows how good he looks now? His cultivation has also greatly improved. You'll definitely be shocked when you see it. That's good, that's good. Situ Yen heaved a sigh of relief. Although he had heard of this news before, he still couldn't completely feel at ease without seeing him in person. Since even Lan Yunxiao and Lan Xuanyu said so, it proved that there really was no problem. While they were talking, Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang rushed over. Master! Di Beichen had a pleasantly surprised smile on his face. Looking at that familiar face, he felt an indescribable sense of intimacy. Scenes of his master raising him as an adult seemed to appear before his eyes. From when he was just a toddler learning how to walk to when he started his own family, bringing him everywhere to experience and improve his cultivation, teaching him how to use the sword at the back of the mountain, bringing him to drink, all of those scenes made him feel incomparably nostalgic. Beichen. Si Tian's face was also filled with ecstasy. He felt as if his grandson, who had been away for a long time, had finally returned home. When everyone saw this scene, they all sighed in their hearts. They knew very well that even if Di Beichen and Si Tian weren't related by blood, the relationship between the two of them wasn't any less than that of a real grandfather and grandson. Chapter 5586. Hong Zhuang, you're finally back. Quick, let grandmother take a look. Have you lost any weight while you were away? Mu Jinsei carefully sized up Bailey Hongzhuang before a satisfied smile appeared on her face. Good, you're still so pretty. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled when she heard that. Grandmother, you're also a great beauty. Haha, you're such a sweet talker. Mu Jinsei patted Bailey Hongzhuang's little hand. You can't leave so soon after coming back this time. Spend more time with grandmother and your mother. You don't know, but while you were away, your mother had been waiting for you to come back every day. Mu Lingbing saw that Mu Jinsei had sold her out the moment she opened her mouth and couldn't help but say, Hong Zhuang, your grandmother is also waiting for you to come back every day. She's always talking about you, but she doesn't talk about it anymore. Mu Jinsei's expression changed as she said, Lingbing, you, hearing all this, Bailey Hongzhuang only felt her heart grow warmer. Grandmother, mother, I know you're all thinking about me. Her exquisite face was filled with a blissful smile. I've always been thinking about you too. I hate that I can't be with you all every day. It would be great if that could be the case. Mu Jinsei couldn't help but sigh. After Di Yujue had appeared, her feelings had undoubtedly been extremely complicated. If they hadn't found the Di family, then Beichen would have been able to come back after his body's condition was resolved. But now that Beichen had found his family, he naturally couldn't stay here forever. She was happy that Beichen had found his family, but when she thought about how her child wouldn't be able to stay by their side often, she felt a little sad. After everything that had happened, what she yearned for the most was to be reunited with her family. Actually, this isn't impossible. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. After a short discussion, Situ Yen suddenly said, Beichen, did Xiren and Yingying come back with you? We're back. We're back together. Di Beichen smiled lightly. But we just returned yesterday, so Xiren and Yingying returned to the Cloudward sect first. Situ Yen nodded slightly with a heavy expression on his face. It's good that you're back. You made it in time. Seeing the change in Situ Yan's expression, Di Beichen couldn't help but ask, Master, did something happen? Why do you have such an expression? When Bailey Hongzhuang heard the conversation between the two, she couldn't help but look over with a concerned expression. Xiren and Yingying were their good friends, so they naturally cared about them. Something has indeed happened to the Cloud Sword sect recently. Situ Yen sighed, and his expression was filled with helplessness. Lan Yunxiao couldn't help but ask, what exactly happened? Sect Master one of the Cloud Sword sect went out to gain experience a few days ago to search for an opportunity to break through, yet he never imagined that he would offend an expert and be heavily injured. He fled with heavy injuries and returned to the Cloud Sword sect extremely carefully, yet he never imagined that the rage of that expert hadn't dissipated at all. Moreover, that expert intentionally let him return for the sake of finding out where he came from. Now, that expert has even spread the news that the entire Cloud Sword sect will be annihilated 7 days from now, so the current situation of the Cloud Sword sect can be said to be extremely terrible. Who's so arrogant? Di Beichen's eyes sank, and his voice unconsciously carried a trace of viciousness. Even if there was enmity between two cultivators, it wouldn't affect their family. Chapter 5587. I don't know either. Sect Master One contacted me after this incident, but according to his description, I'm unable to determine who it is. Citoyen had a difficult expression on his face. He had been the sect master here for so many years, so he knew the experts of the Shengxian continent very well. However, according to sect master Wen's description, he could not think of such a person in his mind. Sect Master Wen's strength is considered outstanding even among the various sect masters. To be able to injure him to such an extent and even dare to speak so arrogantly, it must be a peerless expert, right? Mu Lingbing's eyes rippled with contemplation. She had never heard of this before. On one hand, it had only happened recently, and on the other hand, she didn't know who this expert was. Citoyen nodded slightly. According to Sect Master One, this person's strength is extremely strong, almost exceeding his understanding. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other. If they hadn't been to Penglai Island and the Upper Realm, they wouldn't have been able to understand this at all. However, after experiencing so many things, they understood that this person's strength had most likely surpassed the Purple Realm and was at least at the Starlight Realm. Otherwise, Sect Master Wen wouldn't have such a feeling. Grandfather, is Sect Master Wen's injury very serious? Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was filled with concern. Although she hadn't seen Sect Master Wen before, he was Xiren's father. Needless to say, Wen and Xiren would be heartbroken when they returned and saw this scene. It's very serious. Many doctors and alchemists in the sect have gone to see him, but the results weren't very good. Citoyen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Hongzhuang, since you're back, why don't you go take a look? Among the doctors he knew, Bailey Hongzhuang was the best. Many doctors and alchemists were helpless. Perhaps he could get a trace of hope from Bailey Hongzhuang. Then let's set off now, Bailey Hongzhuang hurriedly said. For this kind of matter, the earlier the better. If they were late and something bad happened, it was something none of them wanted to see. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone nodded. Among the various sects, the Cloud Sword sect had always had a close relationship with them. In addition to the brotherhood between Xiren and Di Beichen, this matter naturally couldn't be left unattended. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen set off, Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng also decided to follow them. Yu Linfeng. Everyone was a little worried about the sudden appearance of this peerless expert. Master, if that guy is really in existence above the Starlight Realm, then he's an existence that surpasses everyone in the Xingxian continent. Even the playful Xiao He felt the seriousness of the matter after hearing this news. Her brows were tightly knitted, and her face was filled with worry. That's right. Compared to other things, perhaps this is the most important problem. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes darkened. She didn't know what level the other party's strength had reached, nor did she know if they could deal with him. Chapter 5588. Logically speaking, it's very difficult for a Starlight Realm cultivator to appear in the cultivation resources of the lower realms, but it's not completely impossible. Di Beichen was also immersed in his thoughts. This situation really caught them off guard. Previously, they were worried that something like this would happen, so they hoped to bring their clans and sects to the upper realms. Although there were powerhouses everywhere in the upper realms, under such circumstances, everyone could also improve faster. Sometimes, being in such a situation wasn't a bad thing. On the contrary, ignorance was the most terrifying. However, he didn't expect that just as he started to worry about this problem really happened. This was undoubtedly terrible. Didn't that guy say that he'll come to destroy the Cloud Sword sect in 7 days? We'll know when we see it with our own eyes. The cold voice was cold and sharp, and the phoenix eyes that were as black as ink rippled with a deep and cold light. Even if they didn't know what kind of guy the other party was, since he had provoked them, they definitely couldn't let him go. Cloud Sword sect. Xiren and Shangguan Yingying were undoubtedly in an extremely bad mood at this moment. They originally thought that after returning this time, they would see a happy and harmonious scene. Xiren thought that this time, he would be able to hold his head high in front of his old man. Previously, his old man had always said that his vision wasn't broad enough, and wanted him to go out and gain experience. After going out this time, his strength had increased a lot compared to before. However, he didn't expect to see his heavily injured father after returning. When Jinghui was lying on the bed at this moment, the injuries on his body were shocking, and one of his hands was gone. He had often seen his father injured since he was young, but it was really the first time he saw such serious injuries. Ziren, why don't we go look for Hong Zhuang? Hong Zhuang's medical skills are so good, she must have a way. Shangguan Yingying anxiously paced back and forth. She really didn't expect such a scene to happen. For a moment she was so anxious that she didn't know what to do. Father said that he has already told Sect Master Situ about this matter. As long as Hong Zhuang and the others see Sect Master Situ, he will definitely mention this matter. Once Hong Zhuang and the others know about it, they will definitely come over. We don't need to make an extra trip. Ziren pulled Shangguan Yingying back. Presently, what we have to worry about the most is stabilizing the hearts of the people. After this incident occurred, all the disciples of the Cloudsword sect were in a state of panic, and there were even many people that wanted to flee first. The Cloudword sect is Father's painstaking effort. I can't let it disperse just like this. No matter what, the Cloudsword sect was his roots, and it was the place he'd lived since he was young. His mother had left early, so his childhood memories were of his father and the Cloud Sword sect. Even if his father normally wasn't good at expressing his feelings, he understood his father's feelings towards the Cloudword sect. If the Cloudsword sect were to collapse just like this, then that would be something that his father was most unable to accept. Shangguan Yingying nodded when she heard this. You're right. All the disciples are discussing this matter. What do you think we should do? Stabilizing the hearts of the people, this matter was simple, but the hearts of the people were the most difficult to predict. If they wanted to stabilize the hearts of the people, then they had to make everyone be filled with confidence towards the Cloudsword sect. Yingying, don't worry about it. Leave this matter to me. Chapter 55-89. Just as the two of them were talking, Di Beichen and his group had arrived. Ziren. Di Beichen quickened his steps and walked in front of Ziren. You're here. Ziren's lips curled into a smile. I knew you'd come today. How's Uncle? Bailey Hongzhuang asked with concern. Shangguan Yingying walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side, her delicate face filled with anxiety. Hongzhuang, it's good that you're here. Father's condition is very serious. Quickly go and take a look. All right. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded solemnly. Quickly take me to have a look. Yingying, take Hongzhuang over first. We'll be there soon, Ziren said. Immediately after, Bailey Hongzhuang followed Bailey Hongzhuang and quickly rushed to Sect Master Wen's residence. On the way, Shangguan Yingying was also anxiously explaining the general situation to Bailey Hongzhuang. Hongzhuang, we can only rely on you now. Shangguan Yingying looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with hope. The latter was undoubtedly carrying all their hope. This time, the serious injury caused a huge blow to Father. I feel that his entire condition has become very bad. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. She still had some doubts in her heart. However, when she saw Sect Master Wen, she suddenly understood what Shangguan Yingying meant. In her line of sight, Sect Master Wen was lying on the bed. His originally handsome face looked extremely old at this moment. Even his hair had turned white. He was dispirited and listless, as if his vitality had been forcefully taken away by something. His eyes were dim and lifeless. Father, Hongzhuang is here. Shangguan Yingying called out softly. Her slightly trembling voice was filled with heartache. She'd stayed in the Cloudsword sect since she was young, and she'd taken Wen Jinghui to be her own father since long ago. At this moment, when she saw him in such a state, how could her heart not ache? When Jinghui then turned to look at Bailey Hongzhuang, the corners of his lips pulling out a smile with difficulty. Hongzhuang, you're here. Uncle, let me take a look at your injuries, Bailey Hongzhuang said softly. Wen Jinghui waved his hand. It's useless. I know my body. It can't be saved. Originally, when he fled back, he was quite glad that the heavens didn't want him to die. However, after returning, he found that his body's condition was getting worse and worse. So many doctors and alchemists came, but it was useless. Presently, he'd already given up hope, and the only thing he regretted was that if he knew the outcome would be like this, then he shouldn't have returned at that time, and he wouldn't have implicated the entire Cloudsword sect. The only thing that comforted him was that he was still able to see Xiren and Yingying before he returned, and this was already the preferential treatment that the heavens had given him. Uncle, your condition isn't that bad. Don't give up so quickly, Bailey Hongzhuang said hurriedly. Shangguan Yingying spoke out as well. Father, the other doctors and alchemists can't treat you because their standards aren't high enough. However, you know how strong Hongzhuang is, so you can be at ease and let her treat you. Wen Jinghui looked at Shangguan Yingying and smiled lightly. I know you're filial. With Wen Jinghui's cooperation, Bailey Hongzhuang carefully examined Wen Jinghui's injuries, and she instantly gained a trace of understanding in her heart. Hongzhuang, is father's injuries related to the energy of darkness? Chapter 5590. That's right, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. It seems that this guy might have come from the upper realm. Awakening one's innate talent could only be done in the upper realm. She had previously thought that this guy might have come from Penglai Island, but now she was certain. Although she couldn't figure out how this guy came from the upper realm to the lower realm, such a guy would indeed pose a great threat to the Shengxian continent. Then, can father's injuries be treated? Don't worry, if it was before, it would be a little troublesome to treat, but I'm the Saint of Light now, so this shouldn't be a problem for me. With the voice of Bailey Hongzhuang falling, Shangguan Yingying breathed a sigh of relief, and her whole body was at ease. As long as her father was fine, they could think of other ways. Wen Jinghui had already given up hope, but after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's confident words, he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, a thick look of surprise appearing in his eyes. Did he hear wrongly? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. Uncle, you don't have to worry, I'll be able to heal you soon, but you'll have to think of another way to heal your hand. Wen Jinghui's hand was already gone, so if he wanted to regrow it, he would have to find another way. Wen Jinghui nodded. He had already given up on this point. However, the news that he was still alive was undoubtedly extremely shocking to him. Next, Bailey Hongzhuang began to use the power of light to heal him. In fact, Wen Jinghui's injuries weren't complicated. The reason why the doctors were helpless was because they couldn't stop the destructive power of darkness. Not only that, that guy was very despicable. He even left a trace of darkness in Wen Jinghui's body when he attacked. It was this dark power that was constantly destroying Wen Jinghui's vitality. If they had come back 2 days later, Wen Jinghui would have been exhausted to death by this dark power. As an extremely warm light appeared from Bailey Hongzhuang's body, Wen Jinghui only felt an indescribable sense of comfort. The feeling of collapse from before seemed to have disappeared in an instant, and even his breathing became smoother. The power of light and the power of darkness were opposites to begin with, so under the influence of the power of light, the power of darkness quickly dissipating into nothingness in the blink of an eye. Wen Jinghui looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. He had never seen such a method before. When that ray of light appeared, he only felt that Bailey Hongzhuang had become sacred and inviolable. She was as holy as a fairy from the 9th heaven, giving people an indescribable feeling of nobility. Most importantly, that kind of power made people feel comfortable for no reason. This feeling was transmitted from every corner of his body. It was no different from a cleansing of his marrow and meridians. Uncle, do you feel better? Bailey Hongzhuang asked with a smile. Even though his injuries had yet to be healed, Wen Jinghui's mental state was already much better than before after eliminating the dark energy that was constantly destroying his body. Wen Jinghui nodded. Much better, Hong Zhuang. I didn't expect you to be so powerful now. Ying and Xiren are also very powerful, so you don't have to worry. Don't worry, Xiren can handle the 7-day agreement. Chapter 55-91. When Xiren and the others arrived, they saw that Wen Jinghui had recovered a lot. Immediately, Xiren breathed a sigh of relief, and a long-lost smile appeared on his face. Even though he wasn't proficient in medicine, he could tell from Shangguan Yingying and the others' expressions that there shouldn't be any problems. Hong Zhuang, many thanks. Xiren suppressed the excitement in his heart. Even though he had always appeared to be strong, he still couldn't calm down after seeing his father's condition. Now that he saw this scene, he was completely at ease. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. With our relationship, do you still need to say such words? Alright, take it that I said something wrong. Hong Zhuang, how is Sect Master Wen's condition? Situ Yen asked. He and Wen Jinghui had been friends for many years and had a very close relationship. Although Wen Jinghui was Xiren's father, the age gap between them wasn't very big because he married and had children at a later age. Don't worry, it's nothing serious. He just needs to recuperate for a while. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. That's good. Situ Yen revealed a smile and looked at Wen Jinghui. I told you not to despair. You can be at ease now. Wen Jinghui chuckled. It seems that my luck this time is really good. After Bailey Hongzhuang bandaged Wen Jinghui's wounds, everyone began to discuss the situation. Sect Master Wen, please tell us the ins and outs of what happened. This way we can think of a countermeasure, said Lan Yunxiao. All right. Following that, Wen Jinghui recounted everything that had happened back then. It turned out that Wen Jinghui had gone out to train this time to find an opportunity to break through. During this process, he found a place with extremely dense origin energy. It was a good place for cultivation. No cultivator would be willing to miss such a good cultivation cave, so he went in to take a look. However, he didn't expect that the cave had already been occupied. After discovering this, he immediately wanted to leave. He didn't expect that the other party would be so furious at his appearance that he didn't even have the slightest chance and directly wanted to take his life. He didn't care too much at first, but after the other party made a move, he felt the other party's terrifying strength. He didn't have the slightest room to resist. However, after heavily injuring him, the other party didn't directly take his life, but let him leave. He originally thought that the other party didn't intend to take his life, but he didn't expect that the other party had actually been following him for the sake of destroying the entire Cloud Sword sect. The other party's strength was very strong. I didn't notice that he was following me until he appeared in the Cloud Sword sect. When Jinghui's after s, the other party should be a cultivator of the darkness attribute, but I don't know how he came here from the upper realm. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said, Sect Master Wen's was unable to heal because of the dark energy. Chapter 55-92. So that's how it is. Although they didn't know what method the other party used to come to the lower realm, just like how they could return, others might be able to find a loophole. Maybe he's from the same clan. Didn't Ling Xiao go to Penglai Island because of this? Shangguan Yingying said. Darkness attribute cultivators are ostracized in the upper realm and have a hard time. However, it's a different situation in the lower realm. He's an existence that completely transcends everyone. Di Baichen said in a low voice. The reason he followed the Cloud Sword sect might not be to destroy the sect, but to seize it for himself. Now, he understood the situation of the darkness attribute cultivators in the upper realm very well. Logically speaking, it was too exaggerated to destroy a sect because of such a small matter. However, from Sect Master Wen's strength, he could guess that his background wasn't simple. It was too troublesome to build a new force on his own. It was undoubtedly the easiest way to get rid of the sect master and replace him. What you said is very possible. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. However, it's also his bad luck that he chose the wrong person. Her beautiful voice carried a trace of coldness. If the other party was a cultivator of another attribute, perhaps they would be worried. After all, no one knew if the other party was stronger than them. However, after knowing the other party's attribute, they were completely at ease. The darkness attribute cultivation method had disappeared for many years. The other party didn't have a corresponding cultivation method, so his strength definitely wouldn't be high. This point could be seen when they first saw the group of darkness attribute cultivators. Situyen, Wen Jinghui, and the other seniors looked at the 4 juniors seriously analyzing, but their minds were in a mess. This was because they didn't understand the situation. Even if the 4 juniors analyzed clearly and logically, they couldn't even say a word. So according to what you're saying, this guy, can you deal with him? After a long while, Lan Yunxiao concluded the crux of the problem. Hearing this, the 4 youths smiled and nodded. If there are no accidents, it should be so. When Jinghui's eyes widened. Perhaps Situyen and the others didn't know, but he knew the other party's terrifying strength very well. However, the 4 of them actually said that they could deal with him. Wasn't this too frightening? Ziren, you guys actually improved so much this time? When Jinghui found it hard to believe. In fact, he was quite familiar with Penglai Island, but even the cultivators of Penglai Island couldn't compare to this man's strength. That's right. When Ziren nodded proudly. Father, you're right. We still have to go out and see more to see a wider world. I actually wanted to bring you with me when I came back this time. Haven't you always liked to see the vast world? There's a good opportunity now. After we've dealt with this matter, let's go together. What do you think? Wen Jinghui sth. A tyrannical aura erupted from Wen Ziren's body. However, Wen Ziren controlled it so that it did not affect Wen Jinghui. Chapter 5593. This aura. It's exactly the same as the powerhouse I met before. Wen Jinghui's eyes were filled with shock. Previously, he did not know how to use words to describe the other party's strength. He only felt that it was a strength that completely exceeded his understanding. At least, he had never met such a terrifying opponent in the Xingxian continent for so long. However, after Ziren released his aura, he was shocked to find that his son had only left for a short period of time and his strength had reached such a terrifying realm. After sensing Ziren's aura, Situyen and the others secretly sighed in their hearts. This level of strength was something they had never come into contact with before. Previously, when Bailey Hongzhuang displayed her strength on Penglai Island, they were also extremely shocked. Ziren and the others had only been in the upper realm for a short period of time, but they had already reached such a terrifying level of strength. From this, it could be seen how terrifying the strength of the upper realm was. Those powerhouses who had always lived in the upper realm must have extremely shocking strength, far beyond their imagination. When Diyujua first came, they instinctively felt that Dijua's strength was very powerful. It was a kind of strength that was felt from the soul. However, from the beginning to the end, Diyujua had never displayed his strength, so they did not know what Dijua's cultivation was like. It was only now that they had a more specific understanding. Without thinking, they knew that Dijua's strength was definitely much stronger than Ziren and the others. That was a world that was completely stronger than the lower realm. Hearing Wen Jinghui's words, Ziren's face revealed a trace of a smile. If he was still worried before, now that he heard his father's words, he could rest assured. It seemed that the other party's strength was indeed not very strong. They could completely deal with it. Father, you can rest assured now. Even if I can't do it, Beichen and Hongzhuang are both stronger than me. The other party is just courting death. When Ziren smiled. At this moment, Wen Jinghui naturally understood. His heart that had been hanging in the air finally relaxed. He was worried that the Cloud Sword sect would be destroyed in his hands. He'd spent so much effort, and he absolutely couldn't let it disappear just like that. "By the way, Father, what do you think of my proposal?" Ziren asked with a smile. Shangguan Yingying also smiled and said, "Father, the upper realm suits your requirements very well. You'll definitely like it." She had followed Wen Jinghui since she was a child, so she knew Wen Jinghui's character all too well. He only wanted to pursue higher cultivation. Due to the lack of cultivation resources in the lower realms, Wen Jinghui's strength had never been able to improve. If he went to the upper realms, he would definitely improve quickly. Wen Jinghui pondered for a moment, then smiled and said, "Then first, we have to make arrangements for the sect." Hearing this, Ziren and Shangguan Yingying both smiled in surprise. "Father, does that mean you've agreed?" When Ziren, who was still in a state of surprise, could not help but ask for confirmation. Ever since Lan Yunxiao rejected Bailey Hongzhuang's suggestion, he had been worried about this problem. Perhaps to them, abandoning the sect was not a difficult matter, but to the elders, it was simply impossible. However, after seeing his father agree to his request so quickly, he found it hard to believe for a moment. Chapter 55-94. Ziren and Shangguan Yingying both breathed a sigh of relief after receiving this affirmation. Although there were many dangers in the upper realm, there was still a chance for them to improve. However, if they stayed in the lower realm, it would be troublesome if something like this happened again. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other after noticing this. How they wished Lan Yunxiao would agree so easily. In fact, when Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other, Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng also exchanged glances. Compared to Wen Jinghui, they seemed to be thinking too much and complicating things. With all the knots in his heart untangled and his injuries gradually recovering, Wen Jinghui's condition improved a lot in a short time. Since it's a 7-day agreement, there aren't many days left. Why don't we stay here for the time being? Situ Yen suggested. Wen Jinghui nodded and hurriedly called out to Ziren, "Ziren, quickly arrange a place for us to stay." "Brother Situ, I really have to thank you this time. What's your relationship with me? You're still being so courteous." Situ Yen patted Wen Jinghui. "Rest well and don't worry about anything else. You have a good son and a good daughter-in-law, so you can rest assured." The last time he spoke with Wen Jinghui, he could clearly feel the former's worry and helplessness. Although he wanted to comfort Wen Jinghui, he couldn't think of a good way to do so. Fortunately, everything was easily resolved now, so they could be completely at ease. "Isn't this all thanks to Beichen and Hongzhuang?" Wen Jinghui was full of smiles, his eyes filled with pride and gratitude. "Ziren and the others already told me that if it weren't for Beichen and Hongzhuang taking care of them, they might not have been able to keep their lives. Uncle, it's only natural that they've been helping us," Di Beichen said. "Because of my physique, Ziren and Yingying went to Penglai Island to help me. I know the relationship between you two brothers. You must always be good in the future." Wen Jinghui looked at Ziren and Di Beichen with gratification. Although the two of them were not biological brothers, they were closer than biological brothers. Their relationship had always been very good over the years. Definitely. The two of them spoke almost at the same time, their expressions full of determination. After leaving Wen Jinghui's house, when Ziren led Bailey Hongzhuang and the others to their residence. Actually, in the Cloudward sect, Si Tian and Di Beichen had always had residences that belonged to them. Because in all these years, both of them would frequently go to each other's sects, so they both had their own residences. The Tiangang sect similarly had residences for Ziren and Wen Jinghui. However, this was the first time Lan Yunxiao and the others had come here, so when Ziren rearranged everything. After settling everything, Ziren said, "Seniors, you should all rest first. This matter has caused quite a stir in the sect, so I still need to go and deal with it." Hearing this, everyone nodded and said, "Then quickly go and do what you need to do." Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang didn't stay in the house, but went out to see if there was anything they needed help with. Chapter 55-95. When Ziren nodded. Indeed, that fellow even released his own pressure, allowing many disciples to clearly sense it. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen sighed with emotion when they heard this, and merely by hearing it, one could guess how shocking the situation was to all the disciples at that time. Even Sect Master One was extremely shocked by such formidable strength, let alone these young cultivators. Probably many people were directly terrified out of their wits. It's exactly as all of you think. When Ziren shrugged, his face filled with helplessness. So the entire sect is in a state of panic now, and there are even some cultivators that have directly fled. The Cloud's Word sect had stood towering for so many years, and even though there were many disciples that were loyal and devoted to it, but there were similarly many people that valued their own lives more. Presently, all the disciples of the Cloud's Word sect didn't have the mood to cultivate, and all of them were pondering the problem of whether they should leave or stay. If they left just like this, it would be too heartless, but if they didn't leave and left their lives here, it would be too much of a pity. After thinking about it, everyone was hesitant and uneasy, and they completely didn't know what to do. What do all of you think we should do now? The sect master is already heavily injured, and even if the young sect master returns, it would be of no use. Wait, don't be anxious. Didn't the sect master of the Tiangang sect come as well? Perhaps this matter will take a turn for the better. In my opinion, it's probably very difficult. All of you have felt how terrifying that expert strength is. I wonder how the sect master offended such a terrifying opponent. It's truly terrible. All the disciples discussed with each other, and all of them had their own plans in their minds. When Ziren and the others arrived, they heard sporadically some conversations, and they weren't surprised by this. Every man for himself, and the heavens take the hindmost. What everyone valued the most was naturally their own life and future. After they saw Ziren and the others appear, all the disciples went silent. Ziren sized everyone up before saying, "I understand what everyone is thinking now, but I still have to tell everyone that the matter this time isn't a big deal to our Cloud's Word sect, so there's no need for everyone to panic. It's impossible for them to cause any damage to our Cloud's Word sect in the 7-day agreement, much less destroy it." His sonorous and powerful voice was like a reassuring pill, causing the originally unstable heart to calm down. Faced with Ziren's confident look, everyone immediately felt more at ease. However, there were still many disciples who had doubt. One had to know that even the sect master was injured to this extent. Even if sect master Situ was slightly stronger than the sect master, it couldn't be by much. It was obviously difficult to convince everyone with just one sentence. "Young sect master, is the opponent that strong? Have you thought of a solution?" Ziren glanced at the person who asked the question, and the man immediately shrank back. "It seems that no one has confidence in me." Everyone looked at each other. Even though they had such thoughts in their minds, no one dared to say it out loud. "Since that's the case, I'll let everyone have a taste of my strength so that everyone can feel at ease." As soon as his voice fell, Ziren's aura swept out in all directions. In just a short moment, everyone felt as if dark clouds were covering their heads. A powerful and terrifying aura enveloped them. Chapter 55-96. No one had expected Ziren's current strength to be so powerful. Everyone stared blankly at the warm figure in front of them, and their hearts were already in a state of shock. How terrifying! This was simply too terrifying. Even though the young sect master had previously told them the same thing, none of them believed him too much because the gap between them was simply too great. However, it was only at this moment that they realized that the young sect master's powers were not any weaker than the peerless cultivator whom they had previously thought to be. As Ziren retracted his aura, the crowd burst into an uproar. "Heavens, I never thought that the young sect master would be so powerful. It seems that we don't have to worry anymore. I feel that the young sect master's coercion is not any weaker than that cultivator's. I can finally relax. I can have a good night's sleep tonight." The crowd heaved a sigh of relief. Recently, they had been unable to eat or sleep well, which had made them feel extremely helpless. Fortunately, they could finally relax after thinking about all of this. When Zion heaved a sigh of relief when he noticed the changes in the crowd. Even though they had lost quite a number of disciples in this incident, as the young sect master, he felt that it was not a bad thing to eliminate some people through this incident. There were still a few days left, but those fellows had already left in a hurry. It was clear that they had no feelings at all. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. It seems that all words are not as effective as the deterrence of power. Of course, power is still the most important thing. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for the entire sect to fall into such a situation with just one person. Shangguan Yingying secretly sighed. Initially, we had wanted to do this yesterday, but we weren't sure how powerful the other party was, so we didn't take any action for the time being. However, it seems that all of this isn't a big problem now. Shangguan Yingying heaved a sigh of relief. Now that I think about it, I still feel a little scared. If we hadn't returned at the right time, I'm afraid that we would have been in trouble. As soon as she said this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others felt the same way. We're really lucky to have returned this time. If we had returned a little later, both my father and sect master would not have been able to escape this disaster. Bailey Hongzhuang understood Shangguan Yingying's feelings very well. She had the same feeling when she was on Red Moon Island. Perhaps it was all luck. So, God is kind to us and let us catch up. Shangguan Yingying smiled. Although he had experienced a period of fear and trepidation, fortunately, everything was developing in a good direction. By the way, my father has already agreed. Has Uncle changed his mind? Zion suddenly asked. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. We haven't talked about this topic since then, but I hope that what happened today will change Father's mind. I think it should have some effect. Shangguan Yingying pondered and said, I noticed that Uncle's expression changed a little at that time. I hope so. Let's have a good talk after this matter is settled. Di Baichen said. In fact, he also wanted to find a suitable time to talk to his father-in-law, but he had not found it yet. I can try asking Mother. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. In her opinion, dealing with Mu Lingbing was easier than dealing with Lan Yunxiao. Chapter 5597. After when Zion stabilized the hearts of the people, the entire Cloud Sword sect returned to its former tranquility, and everything proceeded in an orderly manner. Compared to the nervousness and worry from before, everyone was extremely curious about this 7-day agreement now, and they wanted to know what kind of scene it would be when the time came. At the same time, this news was also known by all the forces. Even if the matter of Wen Jinghui being heavily injured was intentionally concealed, it was still inevitably leaked out in the end. Many cultivators who fled successively sought refuge with other forces in order to find a place to stay, and in the process, they naturally couldn't help but speak of this matter. 1 spread to 10, 10 spread to 100, although the distant forces didn't know, the nearby forces had practically already heard of it. Sect Master Wen's strength is extremely strong. I saw him make a move once before, and many people weren't his match. This time, he was actually heavily injured and even suffered a calamity, truly unlucky. Don't speak too slowly. It's said that young Sect Master Wen has already returned, and Tiangang Sect's Sect Master Sidu has also gone over. Perhaps this matter will take a turn for the better. In my opinion, you're thinking too naively. The other party dared to say such vicious words. It can be seen that he has sufficient confidence. Sect Master Sidu's strength is indeed not weak, but compared to Sect Master Wen, could it be that the other party didn't understand this beforehand? Such a conversation was practically played out in the various forces, and in the end, the vast majority of people firmly believed that Cloud Sword Sect was going to suffer a calamity this time. As for helping, they had never thought of it at all, unless they wanted to throw their own forces into it as well. How close are these fellows normally with me? Now all of them are looking for excuses. Wen Jinghui looked at the reply in his hand, and it was difficult to conceal the rage on his face. After this matter happened, he was worried that Cloud Sword sect would be powerless to resist, so he sent out letters to some close friends, hoping that they could help him. However, after understanding the strength of Ziren and the others, he was completely at ease, and originally wanted to tell this news to everyone so that they didn't have to worry, but he received a reply. In closed-door cultivation recently? Heavily injured and unable to make a move? Going out to look for his daughter who was wandering outside? What kind of messy reasons were these? Even if he wanted to make up a story, he had to make up a convincing one, okay? He helplessly realized that apart from Siduyen, almost everyone else was running away if they could. This kind of perfunctory reason was obviously that they had already determined that he was finished this time, and they didn't even bother to pretend to be polite. Looking at Wen Jinghui's angry appearance, Siduyen sighed and said, "You still don't know what kind of people they are? This kind of reaction is very normal. How many of them were true friends who would go through life and death together? Moreover, most people would make such a choice when their entire force was involved. To think that these fellows usually speak so nicely." Wen Jinghui's anger could not be quelled. "If anything happens to them in the future, I will definitely not pay attention to it. It's good that you've seen it clearly. You've always been such a loyal person. This kind of thing isn't a bad thing for you." Siduyen sighed. He and Wen Jinghui had known each other for many years, so he knew Wen Jinghui's character very well. Wen Jinghui was a man who valued friendship and righteousness. Most of the time, Wen Jinghui would even neglect Siduyen. Chapter 55-98. You still have the nerve to talk about me. Wen Jinghui, who was originally flustered and exasperated, suddenly laughed after hearing Siduyen's words. I've already fallen into such a desperate situation, and you still want to help me. Ha ha. Siduyen also laughed. We've been brothers for so many years. That's true. What's the point of thinking about those fellows? What a waste of time. Wen Jinghui smiled in a carefree manner. Although he had misjudged people in his life, being able to befriend Siduyen was undoubtedly his greatest gain. As night fell, the entire world was covered by a layer of black veil. Everything was silent. When Ziren originally planned to find Di Baichen for a drink, and wondered if he would disturb the two. However, before he reached his residence, he saw Di Baichen's figure and was surprised. Don't you usually not come out at this time? Di Baichen looked at the wine jug in Ziren's hand. Didn't I guess that you would come looking for me? That's why I specially came over. Hearing this, Ziren looked suspiciously at Di Baichen. Why did he feel that something was wrong? Where's Hong Zhuang? She's with mother-in-law. When Ziren suddenly came to a realization. I was wondering why a man like you, who treats his wife like his life, would want to drink with me. It turns out that you've been abandoned by Hong Zhuang. You're alone tonight, haha. Di Baichen looked at Ziren, who was laughing without a care in the world. His long and narrow eyes narrowed. Ziren, sometimes it's not good to be too smart. Ha ha ha, I don't care. Just let me laugh for a while. Inside the house, Bailey Hongzhuang, Mu Lingbing, and Mu Jintz sat together. The three women were like a drama. Moreover, they had not seen each other for a long time. They simply had endless things to talk about. Hong Zhuang, I think Sect Master 1 is planning to go to the upper realm with Ziren. Is that really okay? Mu Lingbing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang curiously. When she had first heard Ziren ask about Wen Jinghui, she had already wanted to ask, but the circumstances had not been appropriate. Bailey Hongzhuang had long wanted to have a good talk with her mother about this matter. Now that she heard her mother bring up this topic, of course, she was even happier. That's right, it's possible. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Actually, that's why we came back this time. We hope to bring you to the upper plane with us. That way, we won't have to be separated. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Mu Lingbing and Mu Jintz looked at each other. That's a good thing. Mu Lingbing's face was full of joy. To her, there were many things she could let go of. As long as she could be with everyone, that was enough. But there are as many powerful cultivators as there are clouds in the upper realm. With our current strength, going there will be very dangerous. Mu Jinsei frowned. Grandmother, when I first went to the upper realm, wasn't it the same situation? But now I can keep up with everyone. When I'm not strong enough, I can stay at home and cultivate. When I'm strong enough, it won't be too late to go out and train. Bailey Hongzhuang was in high spirits. In her opinion, all of this was not difficult to solve. But Mu Jin's expression was still somewhat conflicted. She felt that there were still some other problems that had not been solved. Hongzhuang, have you told your father about this? Mu Lingbing asked. Chapter 55-99. Mu Lingbing's eyes flashed with confusion. Rejected? Why is that? I don't know either. Bailey Hongzhuang's delicate and elegant face was full of distress as she looked pitifully at Mu Lingbing. Mother, it's not easy to come back from the upper realm. If possible, I really hope that you can all go together. Ever since she'd found out that a darkness-type cultivator had come here, her sense of danger had grown even stronger. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's serious expression, Mu Lingbing and Mu Jins understood her sincerity. Hongzhuang, don't be anxious. I'll have a good talk with your father later. Mu Lingbing patted Hongzhuang's hand. I understand that you're a filial child and want to take us with you. However, your father must have his reasons for rejecting us. Once I've figured it out, we can discuss it again. How about that? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. All right. If you don't want to, that's fine too. I'll come back when I have the chance. After changing the subject, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly thought of something and smiled. Grandmother, mother, Beichen's family has prepared many things for me to give to you. They say that they want to thank you for marrying me to Beichen. Mu Lingbing was taken aback. They've already given us many things when they came. How can they give us more? I've already said that, but Beichen's grandmother and mother insisted. That's why I brought them over. Xiao He nodded. They said that it's their fortune that you're willing to marry a darling like master to Beichen. They want you to express your sincerity. Seeing that Xiao He was beaming with joy, Mu Jins reached out and pulled the mischievous little girl into her arms. You little girl, you're really a living treasure. Xiao He also liked Mu Jinsei very much. Lying in Mu Jinsei's embrace, she closed her eyes comfortably. This feeling of being smoothed down was really comfortable. Although the two had already guessed that the D family wouldn't be stingy, they were still shocked when they saw what was inside. Heavens, so many treasures! Mu Jins looked at the things in front of her and didn't know what to say. These things, no matter which one it was, were all very valuable in the lower realms. But now they were piled up here like cabbages. It was too unbelievable. Hongzhuang, how big is the D family in the upper realm? With so many treasures, his foundation must be terrifying. Mu Jinsei was clearly thinking more. These things, even the entire sect wouldn't be able to take out. The D family is also a first-class aristocratic family in the upper realm. They are very powerful. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. These things aren't important to us. But from this we can see that their family values and likes you very much. I can rest assured. Mu Lingbing was very happy. As a mother, she cared most about her daughter's well-being. Everything else wasn't important to her. That's right, this is the most important thing. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly understood the good intentions of Bei Chen's grandmother and mother. The reason why they had prepared all this, on the one hand, it was their good intentions, and on the other hand, it was to make her family feel at ease. Don't worry, they treat me very well. You don't have to worry at all. Chapter 5600. The 7-day agreement was getting closer and closer, and in the blink of an eye, it was already the 5th day. The entire Cloud Sword sect seemed extremely calm, as if it wasn't affected at all, but everyone could feel the pressure of the coming storm. On this day, someone suddenly came. The sect master of ancient profound sect is here? When Ziren had a puzzled look after hearing the news. Ancient profound sect was also a very influential sect in Shengxian continent, but they didn't have much contact with them. In 5 days, almost everyone already knew about the 7-day agreement. Logically speaking, no one should come at this time. After all, no one wanted to implicate their own sect. This ancient profound sect rarely deals with us. Is there a purpose for them to come here today? Di Baichen said solemnly. Although he wasn't in Tiangang's sect these few years, he had already understood the general situation from his master. Obviously, it didn't have much to do with ancient profound sect. After sending someone to receive the sect master of ancient profound sect, Ziren went to Wen Jinghui's residence. Now that Wen Jinghui's injuries were gradually recovering, he could move freely. You said Gu Yanran of ancient profound sect is here? Wen Jinghui raised his eyebrows. When Ziren nodded slightly, Father, I always feel that something is wrong with this situation. You should go and talk to him personally. He was the young sect master, and the other party was the sect master. No matter from which point of view, it was better for Wen Jinghui to personally receive him. I'll go and take a look too. Si Tuyen stood up. Even if Gu Yanran hadn't explained the purpose of his visit, he vaguely felt that it was related to the 7-day agreement. Otherwise, the other party wouldn't have chosen to come at this time of the storm. Conference Hall. When Jinghui walked into the conference hall with a smile, Sect Master Gu, I didn't expect you to come today. I'm really sorry for not going out to meet you. Gu Yanran had some doubts in his heart when Ziren said that he was going to invite Wen Jinghui. When he really saw Wen Jinghui and found that Wen Jinghui's spirit was very good, he couldn't help but be stunned. A trace of astonishment flashed in his eyes. Wen Jinghui and Situ Yen naturally did not miss the change in Gu Yanran's expression. Just by noticing this, they already had some guesses in their hearts. Sect Master Wen, please forgive me for disturbing you today. Gu Yanran cupped his hands and said. What are you saying, Sect Leader Gu? I can't welcome you more than you can come here. What's there to bother you about? After everyone sat down, Gu Yanran said, Actually, I came here today because I have something to say. Speak your mind. I've heard about the 7-day agreement this time. I'm sure Sect Master Wen has been working hard on this matter, right? Gu Yanran looked at Wen Jinghui, his calm face full of confidence. The Cloud's Word sect is Sect Master Wen's painstaking effort. According to my thinking, you ought to not wish to see the Cloud's Word sect be annihilated, right? That's such a pity. Hearing this, Wen Jinghui said without batting an eyelid, Could it be that Sect Master Gu has some good suggestion? My suggestion is very simple. As long as you give up the position of Sect Master and quickly leave here, then the Cloud's Word sect won't have to suffer such a great calamity. You and the young Sect Master will also be able to keep your lives. How about it? Chapter 5601. Grandfather's guess is right. This Sect Master Gu is indeed related to dark attribute cultivators. It seems that he's here today as a lobbyist. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly, and a haze appeared in her eyes. I think he's not a lobbyist at all, but here to show off. Ziren's eyes were cold. Even if Gu Yanran's words were rather polite, he could still clearly feel his disdain and ridicule. That look, it was as if he had already looked down on them, and it was impossible for them to turn things around. It was clearly persuasion, but it carried an aggressive feeling. Wen Jinghui naturally understood the situation in front of him, but he did not immediately flare up and continued. How did Sect Master Gu know about this matter? Could it be that you know that powerhouse? At this moment, almost everyone's gaze fell on Gu Yanran. Regarding this point, everyone was rather curious. Gu Yanran nodded without any scruples. That's right, I know Master Shin. Immediately after, his gaze circled the surroundings, and then he continued. Sect Master Wen, you and Master Shin have fought face to face. I'm sure you know how strong he is. Even if you have the help of Tiangang's sect, it's useless. Master Shun's strength is not something that can be defeated by numbers. Sect Master Gu, that Master Shun is so strong, it should be impossible for him to listen to you. Situ Yen suddenly said, could it be that your ancient profound sect is already controlled by Master Shun? As soon as these words came out, Gu Yanran's expression suddenly changed, and his voice also turned cold. Master Shun is an elder of my ancient profound sect. If he wants the ancient profound sect, there's absolutely no problem. I'm here today to remind you that all these years, there's still a little friendship between us, so I plan to let you live. Of course, if you don't know how to appreciate favors, crippling the Cloud Sword sect is also a simple matter for us. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest looked at each other. It seemed that this sect Master Gu was completely controlled by that Master Shun, and he was willing to be controlled. Although Gu Yanran still held the position of sect master, it was obvious that he only existed in name. The entire ancient profound sect was already under the control of Grandmaster Shun. Originally, everyone had some sympathy for Gu Yanran's situation, because the sect could be said to be the painstaking efforts of the previous sect masters. How could they be worried about giving away the inheritance of so many years? However, what Gu Yanran said at the moment made everyone lose all sympathy. It was obvious that he was being controlled by someone, yet he still wanted to use that person's might to intimidate others. Speaking of which, it was very laughable. Sect Leader Gu, you don't have to worry about our Cloud Sword sect, Wen Jinghui said bluntly. If it was before Xiren and the others returned, perhaps he would have made such a choice because he could not ignore the lives of all his disciples. But now, he no longer had to worry about this. Ridiculous! Gu Yanran's face was full of disdain. Do you really think you can compete? Let me tell you the truth, not only Cloudsword sect, Tiangang sect and Limitless Palace are all our target. At that time, all the forces in the Shengxian continent will be under our control. If you don't know what's good for you, you're courting death. What a wild ambition! Chapter 5602. Facing Situ Yan's anger, Gu Yanran remained arrogant. Old man, I'm telling the truth. If you don't know how to adapt to the situation, be careful of implicating all your descendants. As soon as he said that, Bailey Hongzhuang moved and slapped Gu Yanran's face. You despicable bastard, watch your mouth. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. If I hear you insult my grandfather again, I'll knock out all your teeth. Gu Yanran obviously didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to dare to hit him and couldn't react in time. Pah! He spat out a mouthful of blood, which surprisingly contained 2 teeth. Looking again, everyone noticed that Gu Yanlong's face was swollen and even his speech was incoherent. Bailey Hongzhuang, you're courting death. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. What can you do to me here? She wasn't even afraid of the so-called Grandmaster Shun, let alone this Gu Yanran who was just a fox borrowing the tiger's might. At the same time, Di Beichen, Lan Yunxiao, Yu Linfeng, and the others all looked coldly at Gu Yanran, as if they would beat him into a pig's head if he dared to move. Seeing this scene, Gu Yanran swallowed back the words he wanted to say. If Grandmaster Shun was here, she wouldn't be afraid of anything, but now that he was alone, she naturally had to be extra careful with her words. Otherwise, if these guys went crazy and killed him, he wouldn't be able to do anything. After thinking it over, Gu Yanran could only be a bastard. Master, why didn't you just leave this guy here? Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and the others let Gu Yanran go like this, Xiao He was a little puzzled. This guy was so arrogant, wouldn't it be more satisfying to just get rid of him? Let him go back and report the resentment he felt today. When the time comes, we'll let him know the truth. Wouldn't that be more interesting? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Xiao He was slightly stunned. After understanding Bailey Hongzhuang's meaning, she couldn't help but sigh. Master, you're trying to anger him to death. I'm looking forward to the day after tomorrow. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others didn't keep Gu Yanran's arrival a secret. On the contrary, they publicized it. This Gu Xuanzong was so despicable. Because they knew this Grandmaster Shun, they started dreaming. In their opinion, it was ridiculous. He might as well take this opportunity to announce this matter to the public, so that everyone could get to know the true ancient profound sect. When Gu Yanran returned to the ancient profound sect, he immediately went to look for Master Shun. Shen Yaolong frowned after seeing Gu Yanran's embarrassing appearance and said, "What's the matter with you? Grandmaster Shen, you have to take revenge for me." Gu Yanran's face was full of indignation. That Wen Jinghui really doesn't know how to appreciate favors. I let him live. Not only did he not appreciate it, but he also acted arrogantly with Tiangang Sect's sect master Situ. They hit you? Shen Yaolong narrowed his eyes. A dangerous look flashed across his eyes. The person who hit me is Wuji Palace's palace master, Bailey Hongzhuang. She's too arrogant. She doesn't put you in her eyes at all. She said she's not afraid of us at all. She despises us to the extreme. Shen Yaolong snorted coldly. This Wen Jinghui really has guts. If I didn't let him live, he would have died long ago. Chapter 5603. Shen Yaolong was full of confidence. Wen Jinghui had mistakenly barged into his cultivation mansion, and Chu Chu, a Purple Realm cultivator, dared to offend him. Naturally, he was very unhappy. Originally, he wanted to teach Wen Jinghui a lesson, but after knowing that Wen Jinghui was the sect master of the Cloud Sword sect, he felt that it would be good to take down the Cloud Sword sect through this opportunity. In the past, he had been suppressed everywhere in the upper realm, and his life was very unhappy. He never thought that by chance, he would come to the lower realm through a loophole. After coming here, he found that the lower realm was simply heaven. All the cultivators here had strength that did not exceed the purple realm. Even the major families and sect masters would not be able to withstand a single move in front of him. He had heard that the lower realm was a place that could not be compared to the upper realm, but he did not expect the gap between the two to be so big. It just so happened that he had no future in the upper realm. If he stayed in the lower realm, he could be the king of the mountain, and no one could resist him. This feeling was much better than staying in the upper realm. After meeting Gu Yanran, he controlled the entire Gu Xuanzong. After a discussion between the two, he decided to control the entire lower realm. At that time, he would be able to call the wind and summon the rain, and the world would be under his control. Hearing Shen Yaolong's question, Gu Yanran shook his head in confusion. Master Shen, when I saw Wen Jinghui earlier, I found that although he lost a hand, his mental state was not affected. He looked very good. He was very confused about this point. He was very clear about Master Shen's means. That dark power was not something that ordinary people could resist. What did you say? Shen Yaolong was stunned, and suspicion appeared in his eyes. That's impossible. Everyone knew how destructive the power of darkness was, and it was impossible for a Purple Realm cultivator to fight against it. Master Shen, everything I said is the truth. When I saw it earlier, I felt that it was very strange. I don't know what method they used to eliminate it. Tell me everything that happened after you went over. Shen Yaolong became more serious. According to his understanding of the Shengxian continent, no one could destroy his dark power. Such a situation suddenly happened. He had to figure out what was going on. Could it be that other cultivators from the upper realm came here? He had always had some misgivings about this. After all, since he could come here, it also meant that others could come here as well, so he had to be vigilant at all times. Seeing this, Gu Yanran immediately recounted everything that happened after this trip in detail. You said that young sect master Wen had gone out to train for a few years and had just returned? Shen Yaolong raised his voice and asked. Gu Yanran nodded slightly. Yes, not only him, but also the young palace master of Limitless Palace and the young palace master of Heavenly Dipper sect. They all just returned this time. Although they never said where they went to train, there were rumors that they went to Penglai Island. As for whether this is true or not, I don't know. If they really went to Penglai Island, then this matter is easy to understand. Chapter 5604. Noticing the change in Shen Yaolong's expression, Gu Yanran couldn't help but ask, Master Shen, do you know the reason? Penglai Island has a medicine that can treat wounds caused by dark energy. Since they've been to Penglai Island, it's normal for them to have this medicine in their hands. Shen Yaolong's expression was relaxed. Actually, he didn't kill Wen Jinghui in the first place, but dark energy was the most difficult to treat. Once this problem was solved, everything else would no longer be a problem. However, since Wen Jinghui already knows how powerful I am, he actually still dares to do this. He's truly courting death. Shen Yaolong's long and narrow eyes narrowed slightly, and his face was filled with viciousness. Him being willing to let Wen Jinghui live was already a great mercy, and now he actually dared to not appreciate it. That's right. Gu Yanran gnashed his teeth and said, These fellows are so detestable. Master Shen, we absolutely can't let them off. Just thinking about how he was knocked out by a junior in front of so many people, he couldn't control his anger. If he didn't take revenge for this, he wouldn't be Gu Yanran. Don't worry. Shen Yaolong turned around and looked at the sunset outside the house. His voice was cold without the slightest bit of warmth. I will take all their lives. Hearing this, Gu Yanran's face revealed a smile. This was the result he wanted the most. He wanted to let this group of ignorant fellows know how wrong of a decision they made today. However, he wouldn't give them any chance to regret it. This day was destined to not be a peaceful day. After the Cloud Sword sect spread the ancient profound sect's plot, all the forces understood everything in a short period of time. This undoubtedly caused a huge commotion, and because it was too sensational, some people couldn't help but wonder if this was fake. Although the ancient profound sect's strength isn't weak, they usually don't do things that stand out. This time, they actually caused such a big matter. Isn't it a bit too unbelievable? I think it might not be groundless. It's impossible for the Cloud Sword sect to make up such a reason. According to what I know, Gu Yanran of the ancient profound sect did indeed go to the Cloud Sword sect that day. Normally, the ancient profound sect doesn't have much contact with the Cloud Sword sect. This is truly too strange. Even though many people had doubts in their hearts, more people still chose to believe it. Because, if there wasn't such a thing, it was impossible to make up such a strange story even if it was made up a reason. In the blink of an eye, the appointed time had already arrived. The 7 days' promise had already spread among the various major forces. If it was said that they still had an indifferent attitude before, then now that they understood the purpose of the ancient profound sect, they could no longer treat it as if nothing had happened. Because this was related to their own interest. Once the ancient profound sect controlled the Cloud Sword sect, their strength would become even stronger. No one was willing to allow their own forces to be devoured by others, so when this day arrived, many leaders of forces came to the vicinity of the Cloud Sword sect. Ins TT because SSDs. S's. Because the TTSSSD. Chapter 5605. I'm afraid today will be a rare lively day for our Cloud Sword sect. Xiren couldn't help but sigh with a hint of ridicule in his calm voice. He also knew that his father had sent many letters to other forces, but they were all rejected. Now that this matter was related to their own interests, they all sighed with emotion. This was really the reality. After sensing the familiar auras outside, Wen Jinghui's gaze became gloomy and complicated. These old fellows are really getting more and more shameless. Since they rejected me, they should pretend to be more serious. Today they actually came by themselves. What a joke. He originally thought that those old fellows would stop after coming up with such a strange reason, but he didn't expect that there would be even more exaggerated things behind. Perhaps they would find another lie to cover it up later. I think they should have come together after discussing it. Sidu Yen shook his head and patted Wen Jinghui's back. It's every man for himself. It's not strange for them to be like this. Although they had lived for so long and had to have some face, in front of the interests of the entire force, this face didn't seem that important. Father, all of them are gathered outside the sect. Should we let them in? When Ziran pondered and asked. When Jinghui raised his right hand, no need. Now that the people from the ancient profound sect haven't arrived, they don't dare to come in? At this time, they don't want to have anything to do with us. He knew too well that these fellows were obviously treating them as a touchstone. Your father is right. Let's wait until the people from the ancient profound sect arrive. Lan Yunxiao's voice was calm and indifferent. It would be a good show later. At the same time, it was especially lively outside the sect. I wonder when the people from the ancient profound sect will arrive. Is it appropriate for us to stay here like this? What's inappropriate about this? Today's matter is extremely important. Only by figuring it out can we be at ease. But if we see Sect Master One later, we'll really have no face. The few of them looked at each other with embarrassment. They had just replied that they didn't have time, and now they were here. Wasn't this slapping their own faces? However, they didn't have any other way. While everyone was discussing, Gu Yanran and Shen Yaolong's figures slowly appeared in everyone's line of sight. Behind the two of them was a row of ancient profound sect cultivators. At this moment, all of them had their heads held high and their chests puffed out. Their arrogant expressions made the leaders of the various factions feel very unhappy. The cultivators of the ancient profound sect were filled with confidence at this moment. Ever since this Master Shen came to the sect, the status of the sect had been rapidly rising. Those fellows that went against the sect in the past had restrained themselves greatly now. Most importantly, they'd come here today for the sake of subduing the entire Cloudward sect. Just thinking about it filled their hearts with pride. How strong was the Cloud Sword sect? But from today onwards, he was going to become a subsidiary of the ancient profound sect. The status of these people would naturally rise as well. In the past, when they met the leaders of these forces, they could only be respectful. But now, when they thought about how these forces would all be under their control, they no longer had the respect they had in the past. Chapter 5606. Shen Yaolong felt the surrounding gazes on him, and his eyes were filled with disdain and pride. He didn't care about these so-called leaders of the forces at all. Master Shen, it is said that when Jinghui spread everything I said that day, so there are so many people here today. I think they all want to understand the situation. As if worried that Shen Yaolong would be unhappy, Gu Yanran hurriedly explained the reason for the matter. Hearing this, Shen Yaolong was very calm. It's good to let them see the situation today. When the time comes, you won't have to waste your breath. You're right. These guys won't shed tears until they see the coffin. When they see Master Shen's strength, they'll naturally understand. As Gu Yanran and his group got closer and closer to the gate of the Cloud Sword sect, the leaders of the forces outside could not hold back anymore. They came here today to understand the strength of Master Shen and the others. If Shen Yaolong and the others went in like this, wouldn't they not be able to see anything? If they suggested that the Cloud Sword sect let everyone in, it seemed to be a bit hard to say. After thinking about it, the only way was to figure out Shen Yaolong's strength outside the sect. Gu Yanran, I heard that you plan to annex the forces of the Shengxian continent. Is this true? The sect master of the Azure Cloud sect looked at Gu Yanran and asked first. As soon as these words came out, everyone's gaze fell on Gu Yanran. If it was said that Gu Yanran had come here today for the sake of his personal enmity with the Cloud Sword sect, then they could completely disregard it. But if all of this was true, then everyone couldn't think of nothing. Feeling the gazes that were fixed on him, Gu Yanran smiled calmly. That's right, I do have such a plan. His calm voice was arrogant and insufferably arrogant. That contemptuous look seemed to not put anyone present in his eyes. After the disciples of the ancient profound sect felt the sect master's attitude, they became even more proud. In the future, their ancient profound sect would become an existence that looked down on all forces. The sect master of the Azure Cloud sect obviously didn't expect Gu Yanran to admit it so easily. He didn't even have the slightest intention of hiding it, and was instantly dumbfounded. When the others saw this scene, they also sucked in a breath of cold air. They didn't expect all of this to be true. In the face of Gu Yanran's arrogant tone, anger burned in everyone's hearts. Gu Yanran, you're too arrogant. So what if I'm arrogant? Gu Yanran sneered. I came here today to subdue the Cloud Sword sect first. As for you guys, wait for my ancient profound sect to subdue you one by one. Here, I would like to introduce to all of you the chief elder of our ancient Xian sect, Shen Yaolong. I don't care about your nonsense. Gu Yanran, I advise you to stop dreaming. Otherwise, the one that will be exterminated will be your Gu Xian sect. You're truly a wolf with wild ambitions. Dream on. Trying to swallow all the other forces? What a joke. Everyone mocked in disdain. This kind of thing, just thinking about it, knew that it was simply impossible. Chapter 5607. Hearing this, Shen Yaolong glanced at the surrounding people and said disdainfully, You bunch of trash, let me remind you first. If you obediently hand over your forces, I can let you live. Otherwise, your outcome will be the same as Cloud Sword Sect's Wen Jinghui, becoming a complete dead man. Following Shen Yaolong's words, everyone was stunned as they looked at this arrogant fellow in front of them in disbelief. Standing in this position for so many years, they had never seen such an arrogant fellow. Shen Yaolong, you're too arrogant. The Azure Cloud Sect's sect master could no longer hold it in. His figure moved and directly charged towards Shen Yaolong. Let me meet you and see how strong you are to actually dare to say such words. Facing the figure that was rapidly approaching, a trace of disdain flashed across Shen Yaolong's eyes. He just stood there without moving and did not have the slightest intention of dodging. Only when the opponent's attack was close at hand did he strike out with his palm. It was an ordinary palm strike, but everyone could feel the boundless power contained in the palm wind. In everyone's line of sight, they saw the Azure Cloud Sect's sect master's figure quickly fly away and then fly out at an even faster speed. Bang! A shocking sound rang out. Only then did everyone realize that a mountain in the distance seemed to have been flattened by this palm. As for the Azure Cloud Sect's sect master, he was heavily injured and blood was spurting out. Seeing this, everyone was dumbfounded. Although the Azure Cloud Sect's sect master's strength was not the strongest, he was definitely not weak. The other party was able to beat him to such a state so easily. Recalling that Wen Jinghui was also heavily injured earlier, everyone understood where the problem was. With such strong strength, they were indeed not a match for him. How can this fellow be so strong? If we can't withstand a single move, wouldn't we be finished? Everyone looked at each other. At this level of strength, they also understood that if there was a great disparity in strength, then it was no longer something that could be dealt with by numbers. Today, the ancient profound sect's target was the Cloud Sword sect. But once the Cloud Sword sect was dealt with, it would be them later. If they could not deal with Shen Yaolong, then they would not be able to protect their own forces. Thinking of this, everyone could not help but panic. After Shen Yaolong noticed the change in everyone's expression, a trace of a smug smile appeared in his eyes. Since everyone is so curious, then I'll let everyone have a good look at my strength. As soon as he finished speaking, an extremely tyrannical pressure, with Shen Yaolong as the center, erupted. This pressure carried a black luster as it swept across the mountains and plains. Everyone felt that the scene in front of them was like the end of the world. An indescribable despair spread in everyone's hearts. Crush. It was an absolute suppression. Even if everyone joined forces, they would be able to resist the pressure. It was as if of them. Of course of them of course of course. This thought flashed through everyone's mind, but no one could think of an answer. After noticing this scene, Gu Yenron's face was filled with pride. Chapter 5608 Cloud Sword Sect. While the leaders of the other forces were on the verge of collapsing, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were extremely calm. This can be confirmed. This guy is at the Starlight Realm. When Xiren spread out his hands and shrugged his shoulders, but there was a confident glow between his brows. As a dark attribute cultivator, it's already pretty good to be able to cultivate to such a level. I wonder how this guy came to the lower realm. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows rose slightly. They had to figure this out. Other than that, nothing else was a problem. A Starlight Realm cultivator was nothing to them. Those guys outside must be in despair. Shangguan Yingying's expression was cold. They deserve it. Who asked them to have such an attitude? It's good to let them experience the feeling of despair. You're right. These guys should be taught a lesson. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Although Sect Master Wen's reply was within her expectations, she couldn't help but feel dissatisfied. Let's just wait for a while before going out. We're not in a hurry anyway. Xiren smiled faintly. If the leaders of the other forces outside the Cloud Sword Sect knew that the people of the Cloud Sword Sect were gloating, who knew what they would think? Just when everyone was in despair and on the verge of collapsing, Wen Jinghui, Situ Yen, and the rest gradually appeared in front of everyone. It was only at this moment that Shen Yaolong retracted his pressure. Everyone looked at Shen Yaolong with lingering fear. His strength was too strong, and they couldn't deal with him at all. Shen Yaolong looked at Wen Jinghui, who was refreshed and didn't seem to be affected at all. A trace of dissatisfaction flashed through his eyes. Although he knew that Wen Jinghui's injuries had improved, the scene before him was still beyond his expectations. Sect Master Wen, I didn't expect your injuries to recover so well. Shen Yaolong mocked. Wen Jinghui said casually, it can only mean that you're not strong enough. Everyone gasped when they heard that. They felt that Wen Jinghui was crazy. This Shen Yaolong's strength was so strong that everyone wished they could stay as far away from this guy as possible. Wen Jinghui actually took the initiative to provoke him. Wasn't this seeking his own death? As expected, Shen Yaolong's face instantly darkened, and his eyes were filled with threat. Wen Jinghui, you're really worried, aren't you? Have you forgotten the consequences of angering me? Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at Shen Yaolong's arrogant appearance, but they were not in a hurry to expose him. They just treated him like a clown. The consequences of angering you? Wen Jinghui chuckled. What consequences? Si-Tu Yen slowly said, Shen Yaolong, right? Although I don't know where you came from, I think you don't know much about the situation in the Shengxian continent. You think that your strength is not bad, but it is impossible to control everyone. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. Why didn't they realize that their grandfather had such a hobby of teasing people before? Clearly, he was just toying with Shen Yaolong. Shen Yaolong was annoyed when he saw that Si-Tu Yen was lecturing him. You bastard, I think you're tired of living. Do you want me to send you to heaven?